Hello, I'm Jonathan Mast, and welcome to this edition of the Sedgwick Podcast. And today we are talking about navigating hurricane season. And once again, it is that time of year, and we've brought together three of the best experts that Sedgwick have to give us some insight. With me today is Drew McCallum, Sales and Client Development, Jay Sitapara, Regional Manager, Loss Adjusting, and Revel Boulon, Senior Service Marine Manager with Sedgwick. Gentlemen, thanks for being with me today.
Thanks for having
us.
Good morning.
Well, I know that it is beginning to begin the busy season, and you guys have been preparing already, and hurricane season is starting to get talked about a lot. And so, being halfway through 2023, Jay, what can you tell us about the first few weeks of hurricane season? And as best you can in your crystal ball, what's coming our way for the remainder of the year?
Yeah, John, as you probably know, the Atlantic hurricane season runs from June 1st to November 30th. And typically, these first couple months are fairly inactive. These first couple months, it's crucial for anyone living in these hurricane-prone areas to start prepping, developing a game plan, getting the necessary supplies that if a storm were to make landfall, they are ready. As far as what's coming our way, it's hard to predict exactly what's coming. Experts predict it to be a near normal hurricane season. And while people outside of the insurance industry may think near normal is normal, near normal means at least 12 named storms, 5 to 9 hurricanes, and 1 to 4 of them being major hurricanes. So it doesn't mean we're in the clear anytime soon just yet.
No, it is definitely if you could get it right, you would probably be retired somewhere, correct, on predicting the hurricanes. But it does sound again like we've got to be prepared. So Andy, we know that our readiness for a storm directly affects the speed with which we can inspect loss sites and adjust claims. So what does the preparedness stage look like? And for our listeners, are there steps that can be taken even before a storm hits to ensure a smoother recovery?
Absolutely. One of the things that our folks in our CAT division do, and they do it very well, is they immediately solve for X. And that is an ongoing day in and day out process. Because there's so many variables that relate to preparedness for catastrophe, and that includes resources, unknown asks. So when a carrier comes along 3 weeks into a storm and asks for resources, these are things that we need to always be prepared for and plan for best and worst case scenarios. We also need to plan for putting resources on the back end of an event so that inevitably you're going to have re-inspections and contested claims. And so Bo and John and Danny and all of these teams are really day in and day out recruiting, actuating plans, putting things into the context of the service level agreements that we have with our customers. And on top of that, they have to train 5,000 to 10,000 people day in and day out to do things the way that our customers have asked us to do them. So it is a daunting task for these folks.
Yeah, the teamwork and the resources that we have, it's amazing, but so much to do. And back to you, Jay, so to speak, once the coast is clear, what steps do we take to respond to catastrophe? Because I know it's pretty phenomenal what we've got in place.
Yeah, Andy made so many good points. It's really all about knowing our client expectations and needs in advance. This really helps me and my team kind of develop a game plan on how we're going to respond and who we're going to send and where we're going to send them. The last thing we want to ever do is overcommit or strip our branch offices from the daily adjusters, because when we do get a CAT event, we still have the daily work, and we want to make sure we can service that as well. as far as when the coast is clear, we start deploying our pre-screened adjusters, building consultants, engineers, marine surveyors to the impacted area. By then, we already have buckets of new files for many of these guys, or we attach them to a specific client or program, and this is all done before the cat actually hits. And then one of the struggles we had in the past was finding housing close enough to the impacted areas. Thankfully, we acquired temporary accommodations a couple years ago, and they've been a great help in finding us hotels close enough to the cat event. And in turn, this really minimizes our team's drive time and maximizes our productivity and the turnaround time for our clients, so we can offer the best work product possible.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that it's not the storm hits and then we show up. You guys are so focused and have such good ability that you're there, you're watching everything and moving the chess pieces before it happens. So amazing work. And Revel, what are going to you now? What are a few risks to consider before, during, and after a hurricane that impacts the marine space specifically? Because I know there's a lot that goes into that.
Thank you. Yes, it's a very different space because we're dealing with movable objects. So we've got the boats which might have specific mooring locations, or they might be cruising into certain areas where a storm's coming into impact, and they've got to find berths or a secure place to moor it. So what we do quite often, and hopefully do it quite well, is we like to pre-plan and triage with different vendors that we use, whether it's salvage companies, recover companies, companies that we use that provide hard space for where we might store these boats after the storm passes. And so that goes into planning very early on in the process, usually in April or May. So we can not only discuss what the upcoming season looks like and what risks are associated in certain areas depending where our clients might have risks, but also what we learned from past experiences, what worked, what didn't work, and how can we improve on that, both to better the experience for the clients and for the customers. And, it's ever evolving because it is marine, and we don't know where these folks might end up after the storm. We don't know what condition they're going to be and what we might have to do to recover them. So we really just try to take all that into account. But the triaging is a big part of that early on in the process to make sure that we consider everything that we can, and then we make sure we're adaptable and flexible to account for what we couldn't consider and what shows up at the tail end of the storm once it's passed, that we're able to respond quickly to it.
And Andy, coming back to you, how do we help our insurance carrier clients handle the influx of claims associated with a hurricane, and how do we continue to support their impacted policyholders post-loss?
Well, I think that beckons back to the discussion about just the preparedness point, but also living the Sedgwick methods, empathy, accountability, collaboration, growth, and inclusion, and looking at everything through that prism and being able to, one, put yourself in the policyholder's shoes and being able to effectively impact their lives with empathy and accountability all at the same time, so you're satisfying the customer's needs and paying what is owed and being informative and being on the scene and dealing with unmet challenge or unanticipated challenges like difficult contractors or public adjusters or scenarios that just require you to kind of keep your knees bent. The reality is Sedgwick does a great job of training their folks, providing great leadership and direction, and putting the right people in the right place to do the right things at the right time.
And Revel, although we are in the business of property claims, our ultimate purpose is taking care of people, just as Andy said. And in the wake of a traumatic storm, one of the most important things that we do is deliver with empathy. Could you share with our audience an example of a claim experience that you have that kind of speaks to this?
Well, thanks. And yes, Andy definitely hit the nail on the head with with what he said earlier about how we try to take care of the ultimate customer, being the insured, and making sure that we deliver our claim services in an empathetic way. And one of the big things to take into consideration for marine is because these are vessels, they all have hurricane plans. And those hurricane plans are generally a warranty of the policy, and if they're not followed, it could be considered a breach of the policy warranties. But what we try to do on every situation is evaluate whether they were acting prudently at all times. So they might not have been in compliance with their hurricane plan, but did they take prudent steps? Did they do everything that they could to protect the vessel, protect the insurable interest? And quite oftentimes you'll find that these insureds do. And so by utilizing our empathetic viewpoint on this and our experience is that we make sure to highlight what those individual insureds have done, even if they hadn't complied with their hurricane plan, what they actually did, what steps they took, and relay that onto the carrier. So the carrier has the facts of the matter, but they can also do the final evaluation as to whether or not the individual was acting prudently, because that might allow for the claim to proceed instead of what otherwise might have resulted in a denial. And there's more than I can count of matters like that, and we just found a lot that came out of Hurricane Ian as well, where a boat was supposed to be ashore, but it was afloat. And on one particular instance, the boat was not in compliance with its hurricane plan, but the assured had tried to do everything that he could to secure the boat. He went to the right hurricane-rated dock. He deployed extra fenders, extra lines, additional anchors. He did everything reasonably could be expected of him. So we made sure to document all that, highlight it to the carrier to show what actions he took, and then support him through the claims process when he knew that he hadn't been able to comply with his hurricane plan. And ultimately, he received a settlement for his vessel and came out, you can't say in the best condition possible, because unfortunately he lost his boat as a result of this, which was also his home. But by supporting him through the process and making sure that we took that extra empathetic step to highlight these areas where he had tried to do the right thing, ultimately he was able to get a claim settlement.
Well, that is a great example, and I think it goes to the point of how much above and beyond that you guys, our team goes. So wrapping up, Andy, one of the challenges unique to cat adjusting is the vast range of needs necessary to handle different types of damage, making it important to understand the claims process and having the right resources. So how does Sedgwick ensure hundreds and potentially thousands of people filing claims at one time are all taken care of?
This is my favorite topic to speak of because I come from business development, and I'm so proud of the resources that Sedgwick has internal to the company. Look at Revel and his group and how we get numerous calls for them to do things that are very specialized. If you're looking at something like an oil refinery or a condo unit or a hotel or something very specialized, or environmental issues or dangerous scenarios, moving people around, whether it took taking a helicopter that Sedgwick put together for folks to get transported to an island at one point during a hurricane. Every project is individualized and managed by our impressive leadership group, who will put something in place to move the needle forward, to make sure that we service our clients. And I could talk for 3 hours about this, Jonathan. I know you don't have the time, but this is something that I tell my folks all the time, that we've got it. If it's a need that you have and you need a subject matter expert on it, we have it. And like I said, Jay and Revel are both perfect examples of how great our leadership is and what we do here at Sedgwick.
Well, you couldn't have said it better, and I know all three of you are, again, viewed as some of if not the best in the industry. And I appreciate you. I know this is the busy time for you and our teams, and everybody that's doing this for Sedgwick is out there working hard. And so if people want to learn more, they can visit us at sedgwick.com and check out all the resources, learn how to get in touch with everybody on this call. And so once again, thanks for being with me today.
Thanks for Jonathan.
Thanks, Jonathan.
All right.
Appreciate it.
You bet. And so until next time, listeners, we'll catch you then.